We're continuing our Member Stories podcast with our next guest, who has been both a community partner and a community member, just all around, just a community member that is just always wonderful to have and to see at events and just in general, online like now, and virtually. So we have Angela Williams Mitchell, and I'm going to read a part of her bio, which is really wonderful to read. So, Angela is a community engagement architect and social justice advocate whose work is rooted in a simple but powerful belief. Lasting change must be built with communities, not merely delivered to them. A retired Boston police officer and lifelong public servant, Angela brings lived experience, institutional knowledge, and a deep understanding of the distance that can exist between government systems and the people they are intended to serve. She works to close that distance by helping residents understand complex public processes, organize around shared concerns, and turn community knowledge into collective action and public accountability. Yay, welcome, Angela. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Whitney. I am feeling great. I'll be truthful, a little nervous, but I am glad to be here.
Yay. Well, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you're a little bit nervous, but I know you're going to be amazing. And I'm really excited to hear about your story and to talk with you about your life and how you got to GenUnity and how you're doing the work that you're doing now. So, my first question for you is, when you think about who you are outside of your titles, which you have many titles, how would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm grounded. I am boots on the ground. So I am a wife. I am a
Uh-huh.
mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a great grandmother, aunt, cousin, friend, a mentor to many.
Yeah.
Um, I'm someone who genuinely like to meet people where they are, understanding that everyone needs to be heard and seen. That gives me that gives me pause because oftentimes we live in a society where a lot of folks aren't seen.
Right.
So for me, that is important. I pay attention to people. Um, so I am a smorgasbord of things, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
no one thing. I can't say any one thing fits me.
Mm.
I adapt and overcome depending on the situation where I'm needed.
Yeah. Okay. And so my next question for you is based on that, is this something that's just like you learned from someone? Is this an aspect that you learned from a family member or someone that you knew growing up? Or is this just someone that you just grew up to be out of the work, the people that you met? Um, yeah, out of your experiences.
A compilation, but the center is my grandmother.
Mm,
Um, she has departed now nearly 30 years ago, but she centers me.
mm,
Um, hmm, I have three daughters, and they're all in their 40s. And sometimes we'll be in the house and something will be happening, and they'll like, oh yeah, I know your grandmother's turning over in her grave right now. Because they would
yeah,
have done something that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just did that. We don't
yeah,
do that. Or they'll say things like, I know, your grandmother was light years ahead of herself. And even though those things are, we laugh about it, they're jokes, they actually have meaning for the way my grandmother invested in me and I invested in my children.
hmm,
And collectively, them and we are investing in my grandchildren and great grand. I have three great grands. I sometimes think, I wonder if my grandmother understood the legacy she was leaving behind,
mm,
because I didn't understand it until I became a parent and then a grandparent. that a lot of things I did was a reflection of what she did, or what of the things that she taught me. And one
Hmm.
of the things, my great grandmother had something to do with this too, even though my relationship with her wasn't close like my grandmother's. But my great grandmother, if someone was sick, she was there with all the home remedies. And as
Mm.
long as it took that person to recover, she was there. And I find myself doing that. I have a friend whose husband passed suddenly. And when she called, before her sentence was over, I'm like, I'll be there. And I ended up, I I was fortunate enough to be able to do this. I ended up staying with her for 4 months,
Wow.
because I couldn't imagine what she was going through,
Yeah.
and then the home in which she grew up in, she still has that home. Her mother died in that house, her father died in that house, and her husband died in that house. For me,
Wow.
that was wow. And he passed suddenly. At least her parents were sick, so you knew, you know. But with him, I couldn't imagine. So I ended up staying with her for 4 months, until I felt that okay, you can move on, and
Right.
things like that I would do, and that is so that's so for me that's so important, to
Hmm.
be able to be there for someone in ways that most people can't be. Like after funerals, when someone die after a funeral, you have a crowd the first few days, but after that everybody goes back to their own lives, and you're still there grappling with whatever the issues are. So to me that was important, and that
Yeah.
comes from my upbringing. That specific way of being comes from my great grandmother. But my grandmother, yeah, she was my rock. She was my
Wow.
rock.
Yeah. So would you say that your great grandmother and your grandmother practiced or had this value of community, of being there for their community in the same way that you do? So they taught you this value. Of,
100%. Even
yeah.
my brother, he and I came from Panama together.
Hmm.
And from after we grew up, he was 19, I don't know, 13, 14. After we grew up and had our own families and whatnot, he started a foundation, an organization, for Panamanians. And um, we did parades, representing our country, the flag raising at City Hall and all of that. And even
Hmm.
he does that, and he still does. He has moved back to Panama, and he has opened a foundation there too. And he goes to the nursing home and takes, you know, um, supplies to the nursing home. And um, when a child may want to go to college or something, he raises funds to send them to college. These are the things that he does. And one day I went to Panama not long ago, and I stayed there 10 months, and I stayed with him. And I asked him, like, where did we get this from? You know? And my great grandmother is who actually he spoke about her a lot, but
Hmm.
this is no, she was a mean old lady, okay? So I can't even like when he's explaining to me the things she did, and I knew of some of them, but he was in depth with, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, one would have never known. But that's where we get it from. Definitely our our ancestors. They were rooted in community, rooted in helping folks. And yeah, I do that. Yesterday, my husband and I were going to Chipotle's for something to eat. And someone was a red light and a gentleman stopped and says, I don't want money, I just want food. I happen to be eating frozen orange because it's a thing in Panama, you know.
Oh,
So I had taken some slices out the
uh-huh.
freezer, and I was eating it, and I had four left, and I just gave it to the guy. You know, I says, I don't, this is all I have. He says, well, if you don't want it, but when I went to Chipotle's, I bought him a meal, you know, and I said, I hope he's there when we get back, you know, and he
Yeah.
was, you know, so I just handed it to him. It's like, it doesn't take anything off of someone to be nice, to see someone, to help. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't take anything away from you, you know?
No, it doesn't. I don't believe that. I mean, I don't believe, what am I trying to say? I do believe that. I don't believe the opposite of that. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say. Yeah.
yeah. It's
And
so easy to help someone. It's so easy.
yeah, it is easy. And my question is because I don't know much about Panama. So what brought you to Boston from
My
Panama? And
mother.
your mother did.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a family that lived close to us in Panama, and we were in a pretty tight knit community.
Hmm.
And they had moved to the United States, and years later, they sponsored my mother to the United States. And
Oh.
then she sent for my brother, myself, and my grandmother. But when we got to the airport, my grandmother says, "Oh, you all have a good life." You
Oh.
know, all
Yeah.
three of us were supposed to be coming, so she abandoned me. Um,
Yeah.
but so that's how we came to the United States.
I see.
Panama is beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Right now it's 80 something degrees. You know, it's in Central America. First language is Spanish.
Yeah.
Um, and there's nothing that we have here in the U.S. that we don't have in Panama.
Okay.
You know, literally nothing. We have hot water in Panama. Folks who live in the United States for an extended period of time, when they go home, they put in a hot water system, you know, because
Hmm.
they can't bathe in cold water, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
but there's absolutely nothing that we have here that's not there. Um,
Yeah.
I remember when I went back for 10 months back in 23, 24. It was an eye opener. I felt I had mixed feelings because you walk down the street, and your jaws will hurt you after a while, okay? Because it's good morning, good afternoon, hello, how you
Yeah.
doing? And
Yeah.
that's something that you don't get here. And I had
Right.
forgotten that. So it
Yeah.
took me a while to, get back into the swing of things. You're in a restaurant and you're eating, and someone passes you and your eyes connect. They're telling you, enjoy your meal. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
just the simple things in life that brings value,
Right.
to your existence. I miss that. I miss
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I guess like with those type of like connections, they're fleeting, but I think what's most important sometimes when I experience them is like being seen by another person who is a complete stranger, right? And
Yes.
to me, I mean, it also sounds like Panamanian culture is also values community and
Yes.
values that grounded nature of connecting on even, I guess, even on a simple level, like at a restaurant and
Right.
saying,
Good morning, good
yeah,
afternoon. How you doing? And I don't care where you go. That is the behavior, except for when you're in a touristy area.
mhm,
When somebody is not from there because
right, right,
they look at you, and they like look through you.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but when you are in the city, or when you're in the community, or what have you, it's just a constant, good morning, good afternoon, hey, how you doing, or a nod of the head, or can I help
right.
you with this? So it is it is beautiful. It is beautiful.
Wow, you're making me want to go. I was actually thinking about going for Christmas, so making me want to go even more.
My
That's
daughter
wonderful.
actually moved there. She lives there now, a little
Good for
over a
her.
year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That sounds like a great life.
It, she's living her best darn life right now. Even though
Good for
she has a
her.
4-year-old who's now learning to speak Spanish, and I'm so tickled. You
That's
know?
amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. And so, my next question for you is about your experience in public service and working in the police force. So, how did you, what decided or what made you decide that you wanted to go in that direction? And did you feel like it was, had to do with your family or anything like that or your culture?
I don't know.
No.
No, I am being honest. It was a dare, a bet. That's
Oh,
first and foremost.
yeah.
Then from there, it was the income.
Uh-huh.
I lived next door to a family. They're from Haiti, and the son worked for the police department. He was a cadet, and
Hmm.
he had a friend, and they used to hang out on my steps when I lived in Dorchester. And he says, "Miss Angela, the department is hiring." I said, "Hiring what? Who?" "I don't want to be no police officer. I want
Yeah.
nothing to do with a gun. Blah 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 blah." So
Yeah.
his friend turned to him and says, "Oh, she would not make a good officer at all." Mm-mm. And they went back and forth. I'm like, "Hello, I'm standing right here, you know."
Yeah.
They bet $20. I picked up the phone and I called my cousin, a female cousin of mine. I says, "Hey, I was just told the police department is hiring. What do you think? They're having an orientation. Let's go." So she turned to her husband and said, "Hey, Angela's on the phone. There's an orientation for the police department. They're hiring." He says, "My wife a cop? Sure." You know, and the rest is history. You know, we both
Yeah.
went to the orientation. We both took the exam. She got on in February of 89. I got on in November of 89. And that's how it was.
Wow.
Now, I never wanted to be a police officer,
Uh-huh.
but going to the orientation and listening to the benefits and the pay scale and what have you, I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I can do this. I've got 3 daughters,
Uh-huh.
3 daughters in our environment that is going to create financial security for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the exam. I had no idea. I went in with no expectations. The only image I had of policing is what you saw on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, I had no real anything because I never had dealings interactions with police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but once I got on the force, I realized there's intervention prevention, and then there's reactive policing, and I
Mm-hmm.
did not like reactive policing. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate because I migrated towards the intervention prevention side of policing, and it fit me and my
Mm-hmm.
character and what I wanted to do in terms of helping people. And I became a community service officer, which was awesome because it wasn't a one and done. When you respond to a radio call,
Mm-hmm.
you go in, and it's one of the two things: you're writing a report or you're putting handcuffs on someone. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this was on the side of the prevention. It was helping people. Realizing that you got a 911 call, and it's more than just my child is acting up or whatever. When you actually sit and talk to that person, there's so many layers of issues that they're having that
Mm-hmm.
it just came to a head now,
Right.
and they need help. So I was in that position where I was able to do intervention, call social services, get some type of emergency food assistance, whatever their needs were, and
Hmm.
connect them with someone that was truthfully going to help them, not give them a card and say, call this person, but was going to
Right.
truthfully walk them through whatever their needs are to get them out of that crisis moment. And I,
Right.
I, I love that. It definitely was me,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that there were those two separate parts of
Yeah.
policing. I don't really know too much about what happens. Same as you. The only thing I know is from TV.
Yeah.
And that's all I know. And so based on that, do you feel like being in that department or what did you say intervention prevention
Yeah.
officer? Did you
Mhm.
feel like that
Community
gave you
service officer. It's
community
called a
service officer?
community service officer. Yeah.
Did you feel like being a community service officer gave you the skills that you use now outside of policing just to connect with people or anything else, I would say, or ask?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Um, you got to connect with individuals on a different level.
Mm,
You know? You're not depriving someone of their freedom.
mm-hmm,
You're helping them get from point A to point B. You're meeting them where they are, whatever their needs are at that time.
mm-hmm,
Um, it made you see things differently. For me, it propelled me to encourage individuals to use their voice, not for them to think that they're voiceless, not for them to think that they don't have a say so in what happens. Even if they went to the hospital and said to the doctor, this hurts, and the doctor said, take 2 aspirin. No, let them know it hurts, and these are your symptoms, and what have you, because it can be worse. And we saw a lot of that during COVID, you
yeah,
know, where a lot of folks lost their lives because the doctor is thinking whatever they were thinking, but they didn't give them the attention and
mm-hmm,
care that they needed. So that became important to me, while I was on the job, to let folks know, speak up, you know,
mm-hmm,
yeah, ask questions. No question is dumb. No question is insignificant, especially if it relates to you. And I know it's easier said than done, and God knows I know it's easier said than done, because even though I was an officer, sometimes if I'm in a situation, I just go along to get along, and I have to remember, hey, wait a minute, you wear blue. you know,
yeah,
no, you
yeah,
take a hold of this, take control. No, you ask the questions. And
yeah, yeah,
uh, so I know it's easier said than done, but that is something until today I still encourage folks. Speak up, learn how to do it, especially in today's um age of technology. Google will tell you everything. you know
yeah, yeah, Will.
Ask Google, how do you talk to your doctor, how do you talk to your children's teachers. Find a way to be engaged. Don't be don't be laid back. Don't just let somebody else take control of your life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely seen that happen with some family members.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's not helpful. And I guess my curiosity is leading towards this question. So, how did the experience of being a police officer or um, what was it called again?
Community service officer.
Community service
CSO,
officer.
community service officer.
Oh, nice. So, how did that experience shape the way you understand people, your city, so Boston, and the relationship between communities and institutions?
It's not a tough question, but it is. It's not an easy fix.
Yeah.
Well, I say that because I was president of the Massachusetts Association, um, ma'am, the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers.
Mm-hmm.
And as MAMLIO is the acronym. And as president of that association, I had to stand up against folks who sign my checks.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did I sue the city,
Mm.
I sued the state. I walked people into um the city when they had complaints, EEOC and those agencies to
Yeah.
address whatever was taking place, especially when folks were trying to get on a job. You know, if you had bad credit, they disqualified you. Well, darn, how am I going to get out of bad credit if I can't get a job?
Right.
you
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
so that was a fight. There was this young lady who, at the age of 6, their home caught a fire, and it was suspected that it was between her and her brother playing with the heater.
Mm-hmm.
They actually, if I think, and this is presumption on my part, if they weren't 6 years old, they would have been charged with arson, you know. But this was still on her record,
Oh,
at
wow.
the age of 6. And number one, I wanted to know, how the hell did you get that? Because you can't hold a child, their future, based on something that, number one, you shouldn't have that record because they
Right.
were kids. That's supposed to be sealed. There was no charges. There was nothing. How did you come by this? So that was a fight.
Yeah.
Eventually, and she was not trying to get on the police force. She was trying to get on the fire department.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, and she eventually got on,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a battle. Even with myself, if it wasn't for my cousin Sylvia, she got called before, and she called me and said, "Hey, I got a call. Did you?" I'm like, "No." So I called. "Oh, your packet is incomplete." "Why is my packet incomplete?" "You don't have a high school diploma." It says, "I have an associate's degree. We need a high school diploma." Okay. A high school diploma takes precedent over. All right, no problem. Thinking it's easy for me to get. I called Bay State Junior College. That's where I'd gotten my associates from. And they had not gotten my high school diploma because the school I went to in Maine had burnt down. Back then, there was nothing electronic. Everything was
Right.
hard copy. So that was gone. So I
Oh,
called the department back and explained to them, it's like, "Well, I'm sorry, we're going to have to close your case." Like, what? Someone said to me, "Why don't you go take your GED?" So I called the Boston Public Schools, and things just happened to fall in place because I actually only had 2 weeks. And things just actually fell in place for me to be able to take my GED and present it to the department, you
uh-huh.
know. But before that, I had moved and gave them my change of address, and they said they didn't have it, that I never did. So had it not been for Sylvia calling me, I probably, not probably, I would have never made it on the force because the cutoff age at the time was 32. And this all was taking place less than a year, because I got on in November of 89, and I would have been 32 in February of 90. So I don't know what happened there. Whoops. November and February of 90, I would have been 32, so I would not have gotten on the force. But perseverance, fighting the system, is what got me on that job, you know. And oftentimes in little things, like right now, the SNAP program, folks there seems to be a wave of people getting their food stamps stolen.
Ooh,
And it when I say a wave, I mean a wave, Um and the department is not reimbursing, you know.
that's horrible.
So I I was in a meeting one day and I asked, well, what's the solution? Because this cannot continue like this. When someone call and report that their stamps were stolen, change their cards. Oh no, it's not that easy. It's not this. It's not that. I said, but you all are doing the recipients harm. So finally, I don't know through what mechanism, they're now issuing new cards. But in the interim, my daughter calls me 2 weeks ago. My granddaughter called me 2 weeks ago. She got hacked, you know, and
Yeah.
she gets something like it's three of them in the family, and she gets something like $500 worth of stamps, and it's gone.
Oh, wow.
you know. So she called the department and no, they're not reimbursing. I said, well, if are they going to change your card? Yes, they haven't gotten to my name yet. You know, so it's hard. Victims are further victimized because of how the system works. You know, um. So all right now is I try to emphasize to folks that it is important to use your voice. It's important that if you know other individuals that this is happening to, collectively, you have to speak up, because you don't speak up, nothing is definite 100%. Nothing's definitely not going to happen. And
Right.
speaking up sometimes it can be weary. It can be extremely draining, but you're taking the steps in the right direction, as opposed to doing nothing.
Right.
So being on the job definitely exposed me to the system. It definitely made me understand that things are not what it seems. Everything looks good on paper, black and white. Oh wow, the department has this program. That is great. Until somebody needs it, you realize, oh, it's just on paper, you
Right.
know. So yeah, there was a lot of exposure, a lot of exposure there, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
But you found you saw that exposure and you've created things um to be helpful within your community. So was that what inspired you to create Blueprint for Justice in community? And there's another thing that you've created, Roxbury Generations, and you've developed
Yes.
Roxbury Generations as well. So what inspired you to create those two programs or projects?
Blueprint for Justice actually is a spin-off from Boston Jobs Coalition that fell in my lap.
Oh,
Um, Chuck Turner, a former city councilor in Boston, I'd met him when I was president of Mamleo. So over the years, he'll always invite me to a meeting. And one year, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to go because I was about to retire. Let me go to this meeting. So I go, and he's running this organization called Boston Jobs Coalition. And they were fighting the city to put through an ordinance that when developers come into the community, that part of the benefits of you building in our community, you will hire residents from the community, X amount of African Americans, Hispanic, women, so on and so forth, residents from the community. And that, again, on paper, it looks good. And even though the city signed off on it, saying, yes, this is what they're going to hold, the developers accountable to do, it wasn't happening, you know. Or the developers would be playing shuffleboard with the workers. If they know a site is gonna be visited, or they take the black or Hispanic or the female worker from this site and put them over on the other site. So on paper, it looks as though they're meeting the needs, of the community benefits and what have you, and it wasn't like that. So I got involved in that. Chuck got sick, and he said he was stepping away from the organization. At the time, I was not on the board of directors, I was on the committee. When he passed, the board invited me and this other young lady to sit on the board and asked us if we would assume the responsibility that Chuck was doing. I said, well, he was the founder. That's a lot of work. But
Yeah.
the young lady and I decided, okay, we will do it together. Lo and behold, 6 months after we started this venture together, her job transferred her to Florida. So I got left holding the responsibilities.
Wow.
So I said to the board, I says, okay, I can't do this by myself. I says, I work hard, but I'm not going to be the workhorse, because they were used to Chuck doing everything. When I say everything, I mean literally everything. He had the connections. He made all the arrangements. He let folks know what they're going to do, where they're going to meet, where the standout is. He did everything. He was truthfully a grassroots person. Didn't know a lick about keeping records, you know,
Yeah.
but he could motivate and mobilize folks to a standout with no problems. The director's response to me was, oh, we didn't sign up for all of that.
Oh.
That's what I said. I said, well, you all have choices, but I know I'm not doing this work by myself. And I am not
Mm-hmm.
Chuck. I'm not even trying to walk in his shoes. So
Mm-hmm.
I got everybody's resignation. So that left me literally a one person organization. You know.
Wow.
So then I decided I was going to change the name, because they did, Boston Jobs Coalition only dealt with jobs. Again, I don't believe in things in silos, because I don't care what you do, everything is
Mm-hmm.
interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed the name to Blueprint for Justice in Community. Well, almost 3 years later, it's now coming to pass, because a law firm um, picked us up pro bono, and they just got to change the name from Boston Jobs Coalition to Blueprint.
Oh, wow.
So now we're legal in
That's
that
great.
sense.
Yeah.
And they're also doing the 501c3, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can have the nonprofit, 501c3 status. So that's
Mm-hmm.
in the works right now. Um, and I'm trying to rebuild the board and rebuild the infrastructure for short is Blueprint. Rebuild the infrastructure, because in reality there was never an infrastructure, because again, Chuck did everything. He
Mm-hmm.
was awesome, but that does not create sustainability, you
Right.
know. So in his passing, everything he had here is in the grave with him. you
Yeah.
know, all the paperwork, files, everything. His wife couldn't get in his computer. So we literally was doing everything from scratch.
Wow.
So now I'm doing everything from scratch, but at least this is going to be sustainable, because you're keeping records and things that I'm doing. It's going in the system, and when I get folks to join and whatnot, there'll be a network of folks, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So it's been hard, but it is worth it. It is worth
Yeah. And just gonna add GenUnity into the mix. So how has GenUnity helped you in this in with when it comes to Blueprint and Roxbury generations and like, and if so, how? How has it
Well,
how
For Roxbury generations, what propelled me to it's not an actual program yet. It's it's being birthed into a program because the Shaw Roxbury Library has this Athenium grant up to $10,000, and you can introduce any program you want. It has to be hosted at the library, which in itself is fabulous because I don't have to look for venue. You know,
right. Yeah.
that's awesome. So, because Roxbury is changing, I thought of an intergenerational program.
Mhm.
You know, our elders, our seniors know the history of Roxbury. Our youth have ideas and they bring new vision to the table. And if we can talk to each other, something beautiful could blossom out of this, you know. But we have to learn to give youth space, and we don't do that. And that is essential because our youth, like our seniors, feel not seen or not heard, you know. So at the end of the day, this is the program that I want to bring together. With GenUnity, GenUnity gave me the it allowed me to think outside of certain spaces because I too at one point thought of things in silos and had a hard time figuring out how do you bring life? How do you show that you can't help people in silos? You have to meet them and their needs where they are. And oftentimes, it's more than one thing. It's okay, if I don't have a job, I can't have an apartment. Okay, I have a job. Can I pay my rent? Okay, I can pay my rent this month, but I can only buy X amount of food. And God forbid I get sick and I need medication because, it's just
There's a whole
it's
list.
yes, and it's
Yeah.
tiring and it's like exhausting, and so you have to be able to help folks where they are. And
Right.
ultimately, that's my goal through Blueprint is to create a holistic program where when folks come to Blueprint, from the rooter to the tutor, wherever they are, that's where you're meeting them. You're not going to people and say, okay, what's your problem? Oh, this is what you need. No,
Yeah.
we need to ask, what are your needs? And based
Mm.
on their response, that's where you start.
Right.
You help them whether it's with a job. And if the job is a dead end job and you can get training for them, you partner with businesses, the unions, what have you, and you get them into a trade if that's what you want. You go to an educational institution and you find slots where they can go to school for free. Well, now you can because now you can go to community college for free, but you prepare them to get there. And it is all these steps to get someone to be whole is necessary, you know and that's my big vision, to be able to meet folks holistically where they are, and not until they complete a training, but for them to be under your wings for at least 5 years. Because, okay, if they're successful in getting a job and they're successful in getting an apartment, and now they have some sustainability, if they have other issues, you've got to address that. If the job that they have they want to move up the ladder. You have to be able to talk to the company and say, okay, XY, this person has been here for XYZ number of years. What's your upward mobility? You know, is there any reason why you can't give them a mentor, whatever, so that they can move up? It should not be a dead end job,
Right.
So that's my
Yeah. I love that. That's a great dream. That's a
dream.
really great dream. And so would you say that GenUnity has supported this dream of yours?
Yes, yes. Between Simon and
Awesome.
Darren, yes.
Darren.
You know, um, they both have been awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Jamin is actually who gave me the backbone to say, yes, you can change BJC. You can
Ah,
change the name. And he and I sat down and we talked about it. Um,
yeah.
and he said, like, there's no reason why you can't. What are the pros? What are the cons? And we went through all of them. I was like, he's right. Why not? So
Yeah.
um yeah. Yeah. I love GenUnity.
That's great. What is the thing that you love the most about GenUnity? And I know that's like pick one thing, but you don't have to just pick one. What do you
The
cherish?
camaraderie. The mere fact that the intentionality
Mm-hmm.
of the organization,
Mm-hmm.
that if you want any type of service, if you want any type of help, if you want any type of support, anything you potentially want, as long as you're not bashful, you can pick up the phone and call someone and you'll have an ear. you know you don't find that amongst organizations. And I think that is priceless.
Yeah.
There's always some activity to connect you. The summer cookouts, the book club, the the facilitation program that's coming up. There's always something to help develop you,
Right.
that you do not have to sit where you are. If you have interest, you can move, you can make changes in your life. I love GenUnity. I love GenUnity.
I can feel it. I can hear you say it. And I'm just like, you love GenUnity.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
The award, I felt that, geez, this is all because it wasn't me getting the award. For me, it was the value of the program is seen.
Yeah.
The work that I do is
Mm-hmm.
seen. It
Yeah.
has meaning. And that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, Angela got this award. Oh, great. It's just like years ago, I'd gotten the Volunteer of the Year in Grove Hall for um the greater Grove Hall main streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I went around and I helped the businesses get their signage, make sure they had all the paperwork they needed to have to run a business in Grove Hall and whatnot. So it ended up going, it was like a 300% increase in the businesses from the work that I had done. But the whole idea was like, this wasn't for me. This is part of developing the community. This is part of giving folks access to, and that's the crux of what I do.
Yeah.
Me standing up there telling someone, yeah, you can do this, you can do it. That's not it. It has to change people's lives.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I
I
love
love
this.
that. I feel like that's a great point to end on. And I know you've done a lot of work and you're always showing up. And I love that. I love seeing you at
Thank
events and you're always
you.
there. And it's yeah, I feel like there's a lot to learn from you as well. So I appreciate it. And I know people are going to hear this podcast and be like, yeah, Angela, I need to chat with her. So Thank you so much for saying yes to
I
doing this
thank
podcast.
you. I thank you for your patience and all of that.
Do not worry. Do not worry at all. We're all human. All of us are human.
Very true, very true.
Yeah.